we'll proceed further with our presentation where we were yesterday. So we have understood about the cost of capital, the factors affecting cost of capital, and the cost of debt, what actually debt is and how it is affected. And again, we have done the redeemable debt also, and perpetual debt also, redeemable also, convertible, non-convertible. We have understood with the help of certain illustrations yesterday. I hope you have done the questions also. So today we will be going with the this what do you call is cost of preference shares. So preference shares is also one of the cost which is cost of the capital which is there when we are going, because this is also one of the source of finance. Okay, so cost of preference shares, you might be knowing what actually preference shares are. So preference shares, this is a hybrid security, you can say. This is something in between equity shares and the debentures, because there is some commonality and some difference. Equity shares are the proper real owners of the company, whereas the preference shares are also the owners, but only for a certain period of time, and preference shares are having certain preferences over the equity shareholders. One of the preferences to get the dividend prior to the equity shareholders, and another preference is to get the redemption of the capital before the capital of the equity shares are redeemed at the time of winding up of the company. So like debt, but this preference stocks gets fixed and periodic payment, that is a cash inflows in the form of fixed dividend, and during the liquidation they get first claim over those common stockholders I have already told. So the difference is that the equity shares actually get the dividend, number one, after preference shares get, and secondly, the rate of dividend in case of equity share is not fixed. The rate of dividend in case of equity share is you can say it fluctuates, and sometimes it works, and because of this fluctuation the stock market also works. It totally depends on the performance of the company, that how the company is performing, and accordingly the dividend is paid. But here, unlike the equity shareholders, preference shares get a fixed dividend. So here there is a commonality between the debt and the equity share and the preference share, is that debt also get the fixed cost of capital in the form of interest. At the same time, the preference shares also get fixed and periodic payment in the form of preference dividend. And because of these two reasons, they are called preferred stock, or you can say the preference shares. So unlike that, it is neither bound by the legal provisions nor has a voting powers. So actually debt is again debt, for debt there is no voting power, but there is a legal provision that if in case of non-payment of interest to the debentures, they may file a suit for the winding up of the company. But the preference shares, as the name suggests, these are shares, and whatever is to be given is a dividend. So dividend is received by the preference shares only if there are profits. But even if there are no profits, the debentures will 100% will surely will get their cost, which is called which is called interest. So this is what the difference is there. To form the stock, preferred stock is more risky than common stock, but less risky than debt. So this is something in between the debt and the equity. And further to investors, the preferred stock is less risky than equity because they get the fixed rate of dividend in it, and but it is more risky than debt. So this is all about your preference shares. So now formula for preferred stock: the cost of preference is determined by the dividend paid to the preference shareholders. So now if you just see that the preferred yield will be the preferred dividend divided by the price of the preferred stocks. Okay. So in the same way, just like if you see this illustration as such, that if you just see this, what you can over here, you can this one is regarding the cost of preference is determined. If you can note down this formula, I think this will help you out in calculating the things in the next coming illustration. So preferred yield is equal to preferred dividend DP, or you can say dividend of the preference shares divided by price of the preferred stock, PPS. So just make a note of this formula in your copy, and then we will proceed further with the next explanation. Hope you have done it. And I have already sent this PowerPoint presentation to you yesterday. I hope you have received it on your WhatsApp. If not, I will send it again. The illustration of perpetuity selling of rupees 80, share pays annual dividend of 8. What will be its yield? Its yield will be PY is equal to 8 upon 80 is equal to 10%. So annual dividend of the preference share is 8 and the market price of the share at present is 80, though the issue price may be 100. Okay, so if the flotation costs are also included, then the flotation cost will also be considered. Okay, so this is the formula where KP is equal to means price of the preference share is equal to DP upon DP means market price. I hope this is very clear.
Yes, sir.
So redeemable preference shares, number one, like redeemable debentures we had. So these are the preference shares having a maturity value. They had for a they are held for a specified period of time. See, preference shares were previously available as a irredeemable shares also, but the irredeemable preference shares have been stopped after 1988, and the maximum period for which the preference shares could be issued was 10 years, and this was increased to 20 years in 1996, which I think is still persisting that you can issue preference shares for not more than 20 years. So maximum issue date, or you can say maximum maturity date for a preference shares to get redeemed is 20 years, not more than 20 years. So these days irredeemable preference shares are not in existence. So this is the formula for the preference shares. KP is equal to, you can say, cost of preference shares is equal to DP plus M minus PB divided by N upon M plus PB divided by 2. If you see it carefully, this formula is just similar to what we have studied in debt. So in debt there was interest. So in the place of interest there is a dividend over here. M is the redeemable value, and PB is the purchase price or the net realized value. In the previous case we have considered the, you can say, the dividend and the what you call it, the dividend and this interest as such, or you can say there is a the difference in the premium and the discount, at what price you have issued the shares and at what price you are redeeming. That amount is to be arranged, and that is also a part of the cost. One is your maintenance cost. DP is the dividend of the preference as your maintenance cost, whereas the flotation cost is covered by M minus PB divided by N. And upon that is M plus PB upon 2, which is the average of the amount which is to be considered. So this is the formula for it. So let us just try one illustration. So there is illustration given. Excel Company Limited, each preference share has a face value of 10 and carries a rate of dividend of 14% per annum. Share is redeemable after 12 years at par. The net amount realized per share is...
So what is the illustration number?
Beta, illustration number, this is not there in the book, otherwise I would never have mentioned the entire detail. This is just for the reference over here. Just see this, and I will forward the PPT also to you so that afterwards also you can see it. Okay. Would that be okay? So the relevant illustration in your book, I will tell you that also, don't worry. Let us just understand it first, and then afterwards I will tell you the relevant illustration in your book. I have opened the book also, so you can get the relevant preference share illustration, and we can do it over there. First, just understand this. I hope you have written this formula. Have you written this formula? Yeah, fine. Then let us just see this question. You can just write down certain things in this question also. That whatsoever is given, that each preference share has a face value of rupees 100 and carries a rate of dividend. So the face value is 100. You can say the realized amount is 95. Okay, so 100 minus 95, we have to arrange for this 5 rupees in 12 years. So it will be redeemable at par. Okay, so accordingly, if we see, this is the formula, and you will, and applying that formula which you have, which I have just given you, which I have told you to write down, you will get this. That 14% is the rate of dividend on the par value. Par value is 100 rupees. 14% is rupees 14. 100 minus 95. This 5 rupees you have to arrange in 12 years. So this will also be an additional cost, which is a flotation cost, and divide by 100 plus 95. That is the average investment you have done, opening in plus closing upon 2, and you will get 14.7% as the effective cost of preference shares. I hope there is no problem in this.
No,
if you
sir.
want to do something from your book, I will tell you where you have to go for. This is equity, redeemable preference. Okay, you may take out page number 324. I will also open what Purva has given to us. Yeah. So cost of preference shares. Just to come on page number 324. I think you have opened it up. Now here comes the formula which we have just now studied about the yield. Just if you see this illustration number 10.3, just see the illustration number 10.3. Can you see that? Illustration number. No, this is regarding. Okay. This is for the debentures. See illustration number 10.4. Illustration number 10.4 is also given when there is a growth in the dividend. Just wait. Yes, redeemable preference shares. So illustration number 10.3, if you see, the similar things are coming up. They have also considered the time value of money over here. Okay, so accordingly the things are adjusted. This time value of money is very, very important. This will always be there with you. Now see if they have what they have done. ABC Limited issues 15% preference shares of the face value of rupees 100 each on a flotation cost of 4%. Find out the cost of preference shares if the preference shares are irredeemable and if the preference shares are redeemable after 10 years at a premium of 10%. So the present value is also calculated over here, that how much is the outflow and inflow, and accordingly the cost of capital is calculated. I have only taken a simple method, that I have not applied this present value of money. So if you just apply this discounting factor and the present value of money, PVF factor, you will also get the discounted, you can say, the cost of preference shares. Okay, that is easily done over here. If you read it carefully, I think you will be able to understand it better. I think this page has been scanned twice. Fine, let me just go back to the illustration which we were doing. I hope you are able to understand this. So there is nothing more in the preference shares, because you have to just remember this formula, and if you need to apply the time value of money, you can do illustration number 10.3 from your book, that you can understand. And even if you are not able to understand, we will do it again. The formula is same, which is given on page number 325 also, if you see. Okay, so next is your cost of equity. So we are proceeding further with the cost of equity now. Now, cost of equity, the estimation of cost of equity is based upon the forecasting of the future earnings of the equity in the form of dividend and capital gain, and forecasting of the stock value of the equity shares. See, one thing you must keep in mind, this is financial management and most of the things are futuristic. We are considering all the future values. Means even if you are estimating the cost of equity, what you are doing is that you are estimating that what this share will fetch to the investor in the near future. See, I will be able to give good price of that share only, which is going to give me a good you can say returns in the near future, and such returns may be in two ways. Such returns can be either from the dividends, just we have seen it is a dividend, and capital gain. So there are two components of cost of equity, the dividends which will be realized in the years to come, and second is the capital gain which a company will be getting on selling and purchasing and selling of the shares in the near future. So if an investor is seeing good returns from the point of view of uh, purchasing and selling also, besides the dividend, he will be ready to give more price of that particular share in present, and that actually determines how the prices in the stock market is decided, and that is the way how stock market also moves on, that the stock of a company is decided upon the future estimated value, that what a company is going to do in the near future. Now, among all the components of the financing available to a firm, the cost of equity is the most difficult and complex to ascertain. Why? Because see, in debt and preference shares, we have already seen that there is a fixed cost of capital, that the interest is also fixed and the dividend is also fixed in the case of preference shares. But in case of equity, the dividend which equity shares may be receiving, why I'm saying may be receiving, actually they may receive and they may not receive. If there are good profits, they may receive dividend, and if there are no profits, they may not receive dividend. But in case of debenture and preference shares, the rate of dividend is fixed. And if it is a cumulative preference shares, it is guaranteed that the company will give dividend prior to the cumulative preference share before issuing any dividend to the preference shares as such. So there is a certainty in it, and because the certainty is not there in the case of equity, it is difficult to calculate the cost of equity. One can easily forecast the expected return, expected interest payment of the debt commensurate with the risk structure and preferred dividend as specified of the firm. I have already discussed this. This simplicity is due to the fact that interest and debt are and preference remain fixed and constant over a period of time, but in equity it is expected to grow. May it be expected to grow also, may it go down too. So it will not remain constant, and that's why it is difficult to ascertain that what dividend or what return the equity shareholders may get. Further, already stated, when it comes to estimating the cost of equity, then one has to value the future forecasted cash flows or the earnings associated with it, and then only you can get. Due to the uncertainty of the future earnings and the risk element of the equity, the equity capital increases, thereby increasing the cost of equity also. So there is a chance of increase in the equity capital. So I have already told you that equity shares are the dearest source of financing. So this fact also needs to be done. Now, what are the approaches in the estimation of cost of equity? Now, dividend valuation approach is one of the approach. It states that the expected return to the investors from the equity stock comprise of two components of a benefit. That is dividend received is expected in each year till a particular period of time, and capital gain associated, and second is the capital gain which is associated with the equity stock at the end of the particular period of time. In other words, it is the value of the stock, or you can say selling price minus the purchase price for which the things have occurred. Now, here the P0, the price, the present price of the equity will totally depend on the expected dividend stream. So expected dividend stream is one. That expected dividend stream means the expectation what how the dividend will increase or decrease in the near future, plus expected value of the stock at the time period T. Okay, one and divided by 1 plus required rate of return. Okay, 1 plus KE is the required rate of return, and here we are calculating the price. Now, D1 and P1 is the expected dividend stream is D1 and expected value of the stock at the period T is P1. So 1 upon required rate of return, you can say it can be discounted with it in order to get the present value of the price of the share. So whenever we are dividing 1 plus rate, what we are doing, we are actually applying the time value of money or discounting that particular dividend or the cash inflow which may occur in the near future in for the present value. So where dividend D is the paid in year 1, market price, required rate of return of the equity shares, current market price of the stock. If the future cash flows are expected to grow at a growth rate of G, now here there will be if there is a growth rate, this is for the only for one year. For the next year we are expecting certain things, and if we see there is a future possibility of growth rate, then G will also be there, and accordingly the formula will become likewise that D1 P1 into 1 plus G, because the price will increase in the near future, and because D1 is the present dividend and how it will be increasing in the near future, it will become 1 plus G divided by 1 plus KE. If you will further split the formula, it will become P0 is equal to D1 upon KE minus G. This is the actual formula which will be coming up, and finally the cost of equity will be equal to D1 is the dividend of the year 1, P0 is the price of current price of the share plus growth rate. So this will be the formula which will be useful for the future calculations also. So the cost of new equity, because if the fresh or the new equity is issued, then the flotation cost is also considered while calculating the cost of equity. Flotation cost is the cost incurred in issuing the equity shares but to the investors by the company. So that cost will also be included. Okay, and accordingly we have to put our formula that F is the flotation cost, remaining other things are same. So P0 1 minus F, because the current price which you will be receiving will be adjusted with the flotation cost, and then only we can proceed further. Okay, so F is the percentage of flotation cost, so 1 minus F it is taken, so remaining will be there. For example, if it is 3%, so 1 minus 0.3, so and price is 100, so it will automatically become for 1 minus 0.3%, it will automatically become 97. Now let us just see this illustration. The dividend per share of a firm is ₹1. The cost of equity and it is expected to grow to 5%. Yeah, is there any question over here? Somebody wants to ask anything? Up till here, understanding the cost of equity or new cost of equity or so. Okay, I'm proceeding further. So let us just see this illustration. Dividend per share of a firm is ₹1. Cost of equity and it is expected to grow at 5% per annum. Okay, and that too perpetually. Calculate the cost of the equity capital assuming the market price of the share is ₹20. So very simple, ₹1 divided by ₹20 plus 0.5, because it is going to increase. It is actually, it will not be 0.5, it is 0.05, because 5% it will become 50% otherwise. Okay, so accordingly the rate is to be adjusted and you will get the this thing going. Fine. So from the given data, calculate the cost of equity of company X. So current market price is 120. The cost of flotation per share on the new share is ₹5. Dividend paid on outstanding share for the past 3 years is, so now here the rate of dividend, why the rate of dividend, sorry, the dividend which is to be issued rate you have to calculate. The rate which will be calculated by which it is growing will be G. Now why it is increasing? Because there is some growth in it. If you see from 10.5 to 12.5 to 14.5, it is expected to grow further. So this is something which is to be paid, or you can say this will grow in this way. The expected dividend on new shares at the end of the current year is ₹15 per share. So dividend is also given, and there is a further trend is also given. You can say dividend stream is given, and you are now required to calculate the cost of the equity for company X. I hope you are able to see this, or if you want, you can note it down so that we can it will be easy for you to interpret, or you can take a screenshot, or you can take a photograph from your mobile so that it can be interpreted further. Okay, should I proceed now further? Hello?
Sorry, given like a 15.
Catches? Expected dividend on the new shares at the end of current year is rupees 15 per share. ये पूछ रहे हो?
Given है क्या?
सब कुछ गिवन ही है ना? तुम्हारी आवाज बहुत धीरे आ रही है एक्चुअली. चलिए. So over the 3 years the dividend will increase from 10.5 to 14.5. अब इसका compounding factor, if you will calculate the compounding factor, so what it will be 14.5. कहाँ से 14.5 कहाँ से हुआ? 10.5 से 14.5. So 14.5 divided by 10.5 you will get 1.37. Now you have to look a compound. This we have to look for growth percentage in compound factor table. In 3-year row of 10.5 has a value of 1.37. Now these tables are given in your books. Let me just take you to these tables. Or what you can do is, for easiness, please search for this table, the compound factor table on internet. You will get it. Then you have to see this 1.38. Let me see where it should be given in your. These tables are not there in your books. Case studies are there. Table should be. No, I think tables are not given in your book. Actually, tables normally are not that much useful. Anyways, this particular thing will be given in your exam also. So if you see, thus the sum of rupee 1 would become 1.37 in 3 years. And if you will see the corresponding value of this, it will come to 11%, 11% interest. So here the growth rate has now it has become 11. So you can say 11% is the stream which is coming up, right? So the KE will be 15 upon 120 minus 5 plus 11. So the cost of equity at this time will be 24.04. This calculation is there. Now this is only based on the previous formula which we have seen. Okay. So this is about the cost of equity. So now let us just see certain questions in your book from this cost of equity so that you will be able to do it in a better way. Take out this page number 325. Yes. Now come on the page number 326, where the zero growth dividends are given on the left column. Page number 326. I should open it over here also. Who has provided us? Yes. Now this is on page number 326. Yes. Now if you see and try to understand this, studying this particular page, you can see there is a zero growth dividends on this side, on the left column. Can you I hope you can see my cursor. So the zero growth dividend is provided over here, that if there is no growth, it is very simple to calculate cost of equity. It will be P0 D1 divided by P0. That's it. But if there is growth, now if you see there is growth, see on the right hand side, the constant growth rate. Growth rate can also be constant, it can also fluctuate. So this is a constant growth rate in dividend perpetually. So if there is constant growth rate, D0 will be 1 plus G, and the P0 will be D0 1 plus G divided by 1 plus KE raised to power 1. Now it will again be taken as a discounted rate further, which is going on in order to calculate the current price. At the same time, if you see, if you will inverse this formula, you will get KE is equal to D1 upon P0 plus G. So growth rate D1 upon P0 plus G will be the formula for calculating the cost of equity. Now just see this illustration number 10.4. On the left hand side of your page number 327 of your book RP Rastogi. Example number 10.4, ABC Limited has just declared and paid a dividend at the rate of 15% of the equity share of rupees 100 each. The expected future growth rate in dividend is 12%. Find out the cost of capital of equity share given in the present market value of the share, that is 168. Now here a simple formula is applied, D0 into 1 plus G upon KE minus G. So growth rate is given to be 12% over here, it is already given. So you have just to put the things in the formula and you will get the cost of equity as well. Okay. And further estimating the future growth in the dividends, if there is future growth in the dividends, it will totally be dependent on the past growth of the dividend also. So there are other factors which affect it. Okay. So accordingly, the adjustments are to be done. You have to go through this once, then only you will be able to understand. So future growth of the dividend, past growth of the dividend is there, that adjustment factor is to be done. And then the current retained earnings are also to be adjusted, at what is the growth in the retained earnings. Okay. So the growth rate is accordingly adjusted over here, seeing the time span 4 years. Again, you have to see the table compound effect of it is given, which I have just now discussed with you, that you have to see a table and then only you can see the compound effect of the same. In the next class, I will show you the table and will tell you how to calculate and from where these figures are coming. Okay. If there are varying growth rates, because there may be from 1 to 5 years, just see this example given in this varying growth rate. At 1 to 5 year, 15% growth is there, 6 to 10, 20% growth is there, and 11, and then afterward there is certain other growth. So accordingly, the things will, the formula will change, because you have to then consider, just see this formula in the block. This is in block number 10.13, that for 5 years the growth rate is taken different. From 6 years to 10 years, the growth rate is taken different, and from 11th year and onwards to infinity, the growth rate is taken different. So accordingly, the price of current price of the share will be adjusted with all these growth rates, and accordingly the things will be calculated. Okay. And further, if there are zero dividends, what will happen? Then also the things are given, that if there is no dividend in the near future, then how the present market price will be affected. That is given on your page number 328. Now see this example number 10.5. 10.5 is there are certain things which are given. This is 10.5 illustration. Okay, and the things which are given in 10.5 are summarized on page number 329 along with the solution. Market price is given at rupees 50 per share. It is underpricing of rupees 1 per share is there, and then 50 paisa per share is the flotation cost. So what is the underpricing? Underpricing is 1 rupee, 50 minus 1 minus 0.5. So your net proceeds is 48.50. Growth rate is 8% and DP is 4. You have to just put the formula and you will get the cost of equity. Okay. So this is all about your cost of equity. Now next we are going to study is capital asset pricing model. and the cost associated with it, that how this capital asset pricing model is works. In the beginning of the class, somebody asked about sir, what will happen to the interest rate, and it will not remain same, and how the things are going to be different. So we are going to study this capital asset pricing model now. Let me just share with you the presentation from where we'll be proceeding further with the capital asset pricing model. I hope you do not have any doubts till now. If you are having, please tell me. So I'm proceeding further with this capital asset pricing model approach. Yeah. So CAPM, or you can say capital asset pricing model, calculates the cost of capital of equity by considering the risk-free rate of prevalent in the economy and the risk premium desired by the investors. It also considers P to specify the relationship between the market and the equity. Thus, the CAPM determines the real value of the equity in the market. So CAPM, the formula of CAPM is KE is equal to RF plus beta RM minus RF, where the KE is cost of equity, which you are estimating. RF is the risk-free rate of return, or you can say the bank rate, or you can say the rate of return at which the government bonds are issued at least for 10 years or something like that. RM is the market rate, what market is generating. Now see, there are two components for cost of equity. One is your risk-free return, which is guaranteed rate of return, which you will surely be getting by keeping your money in bank. For sure, this has to be added by some other component in order to make it a cost of equity. Why? Because if cost of equity is just equal to the market rate of return, nobody would like to invest, except in case of you can say, even now if you see the COVID-19 is there, the stock market has crashed like anything. Nobody would like to purchase the shares or sell in the shares because it is very highly volatile. It is always good. People have withdrawn the money from the stock market and now they have kept the money in the bank. Now they are enjoying the risk-free rate of return because beta at present is very, very high. Market risk is very high, and beta actually represents the factor of this market risk in which you are investing the security, in which you are investing. So RM minus RF at present has become, you can say, infinity. So risk-free return plus infinity, people will not be able to increase their cost of equity in such a way that it goes very, very high. And that is why it is not at all feasible at this time to put the money in the stock market if you do not want to, if you are not that much risk aversion. So what happens if, and at the same time people are thinking, those who are having the instinct that the market conditions will definitely improve, those who are positive, or you can say the optimist people, they are putting their extra money in the stock market now, because the price at which the shares are available now will never happen in coming 100 years at least. So this much of thing will never come. So some people are taking benefit out of it and they are making the thing risky. Now nobody has seen the future. The things may become worse in the near future, and the money which they have invested may also go down. So risk is very, very high at this time. So beta is the coefficient of sensitivity or the security of the relationship security with the market. So this is how, if you see this, this is actually a equation of a straight line where K is equal to A plus BX, you can say. So it's nothing but the equation of the straight line. Now, what is this risk premium? Risk premium is something RM minus RF. RF is the risk-free return. Suppose risk premium is something whatever you are getting extra over and above the risk-free return is the risk premium. So market is giving you a return of, suppose for example 15%, and your risk-free return is suppose 9%, and your beta coefficient is 2. So what will be your cost of equity at that time in that particular company? So RF is I have taken RF as a suppose 10%, and risk-free rate of return is 10%. RM I have taken suppose for example 15%. So what is RM minus RF? 5%, and 2 is the beta. So this will be 10. So 5 into 2 is 10, and you are already having risk-free rate of return of 10%. So market will accordingly, and the cost of equity will accordingly be the addition of these two. Okay, so this is the what is called capital asset pricing model, and there is a illustration you can see if you want to do it. So risk rate of return is 9%, and RM is 18%. If a security has a beta factor of 1.4, 1 and 2.3, what will be the expected rate of return? So this is actually R. And this is risk-free rate of return. So let me just put it, putting it over here only. Okay, so we have RF, we have RM, and accordingly we can calculate. You can see 9% into 18 minus 9. So this factor will remain, but this beta will decide that how much it is going to increase. Okay, so you can see the formula and you can apply the formula accordingly, and you can get the results. Okay, if the beta is 1.4, 1 and 2.3. Okay, even you can Google something more about this beta, that what actually is beta is and how it works. So this is a CAPM model of calculating the cost of equity. Now let us go for another illustration. So if RF is 10 and P is 2 and the market portfolio return is 12, calculate the cost of equity. It is nothing P, it is actually beta. This is okay. What it will come up, the formula is there, and accordingly you have to calculate it at 18%. This is a very simple thing which you can do yourself also. Okay, calculate the market portfolio return and expected return of security in CAPM if the risk return is 14%. Now see, this is a complete question which is given to you. For example, there are three companies. Siemens Limited, Steel Limited, and Liquor Limited. These three companies are there. Government security bonds are there. Initial price is given, dividends is given, and then further you have to calculate the market prices are also here, and market price is also given. Beta is also given 0.8, 0.7, 0.9, and 0.99 is nothing but equal to 1, because it is government bonds, and accordingly the things are there. So if you want to calculate the entire complete portfolio of this thing, so it will come up like this, that there are certain dividends on it, and the capital appreciation is given as such. You have to calculate this capital appreciation with the help of the previous given figures, and then the total return is given, and investment is also given to you. Okay, so further, if you will just go for a market portfolio formula, then the total return which you are getting is 289. So here this 289 is the total return you are getting for the entire, if you have invested the entire money, and total investment is 1130. So out of this 1130, you are getting a return of 289. So how much is this portfolio complete return? Is 25.57. Don't worry, this has nothing to do with the cost of capital as such, because afterwards we'll be calculating the weighted average cost of capital. So it is nothing but, you can say, a hybrid form of the weighted average cost of capital itself. You can understand these calculations by yourself, and if you face any problem, we can take it in the next class itself. So here the return is being calculated. How the return is calculated, it's also given here. The risk-free rate of return and the rate of return of each is calculated, and then afterwards the formula for the aggregation is applied. Okay. Now next is the cost of retained earnings. What do you mean by retained earnings? Anyone from you? What is retained earnings? Anyone? Can anyone tell me about what the retained earnings are? Ashi? Anish?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ashi, what is retained earnings? Yes, Anish, you want to say something?
Uh, yes, sir. Retained earnings are the profits that company has earned till the date. Eh? Retained earnings are the profit that company has earned.
Company has?
Earned
Company has earned.
till date. Huh.
Okay. And
Or less.
and the earnings which
मतलब
have
कि
not been
less
distributed to the
dividend.
shareholders.
Less
If the
dividend. Less
earning-
if there
Yeah,
any dividend, it will be
absolutely.
deducted.
Absolutely. Fine.
It will
So
not
retained
include any
earnings are those
dividends.
earnings
Retained.
which are retained by the company, as the name suggests, means the earnings which actually belongs to the equity shareholders but have not been paid to the equity shareholders, and those are retained with the company itself, or you can say it is nothing but the plugging back of the profits to the company. Plugging back of profits means you are actually you can say retaining the money which actually otherwise belongs to the equity shareholders. Means if you would have declared the dividend, full dividend, instead of retaining the entire money, what would have happened? The investors, those who are to whom this money belongs to, would have invested it somewhere else in order to generate some return. So this return is, otherwise you are forbidding them to earn this profit which you have retained in the company. So now company is now expected to generate at least return more than what they have otherwise would have got. So you can say this is nothing but the as good as the cost of equity. Okay, so retained earnings are also, they are actually, I have already told you yesterday that there is an implicit cost of capital which is there in the retained earnings. You cannot say that retained earnings are free of cost, that the company has retained the earnings of its shareholders and now it can use this money for any of its business free of cost. It is not like that. It is having a cost higher than the equity even, because equity, at least there is an explicit cost that you are telling others, but here there is some cost which you are not at all telling them that there is a cost, but still you are forbidding them to otherwise reinvest or invest it somewhere else in order to generate the returns. So this is an implicit cost which is there, right? So let us go back to our presentation. So cost of retained earnings, or you can say the internal actual, is usually taken to be the same as the cost of equity, as I've already told. But when the flotation costs are involved, then F is the flotation cost. Then this formula will come, K is equal to KR upon 1 plus R. Otherwise, cost of retained earnings is as good as cost of equity. Now, let us just consider what is flotation cost rule over here. Suppose you are having the option of retaining, suppose 100 lakh of rupees. 100 lakhs of rupees you are having an option of retaining. At the same time, if you will not retain this 100 lakhs and you will declare the dividend, again you have to come to the market in order to issue the equity shares, and that equity shares will carry the flotation cost. Now it will be better for us to go for the retained earnings instead of going for the cost of equity. Now in that situation, the cost of equity will be adjusted with this 1 minus F, because cost of retained earnings at that time will be adjusted by this 1 minus F in order to get the cost of equity, because this, the flotation cost, we will be saving otherwise if we will issue the equity shares, if the flotation costs are also involved there. In that case, this KE is equal to KR upon 1 minus F. This formula will accordingly be adjusted. For example, say a company issues a fresh shares to raise its equity, and equity investors of return 18%. The cost of issuing internal equity is 6%. What is the cost of retained earnings for the external equity? So it is simple. KR is equal to K is equal to 18% if there is no flotation cost, but the cost of external fund where the company raised is also there, which is 6%. In that percent, the cost of equity will be 19%. It is better in that case to use the cost of retained earnings rather than going for the flotation, because flotation will make our cost much more higher or much more dearer than that of the equity shares. I hope you are able to understand this. Now we are at the last part of this chapter, which is called weighted average cost of capital. And weighted average cost of capital is very easy, because in order to calculate the weighted average cost of capital, you must understand and must know what is the cost of debt, what is cost of preference shares, and what is cost of equity. And there are weights given to it, because when we are going for the debt equity mix, or you can say the capital mix, at that time we have to consider that how much capital we have generated from each source of finance and how much is the cost associated with it. So the more weight will be given to the source from which we have got more finance, and less weight will be given to the source from where we have got less finance, and it will be multiplied by the cost, and finally we will arrive the weighted average cost of capital. And this weighted average cost of capital is actually the discount rate which we have been using in our capital budgeting decisions. So after assessing the cost of individual component of equity, namely debt, equity, retained earnings, etc., we now ascertain the total cost or the overall cost of capital of the firm. So each source of capital has a distinct characteristics of cost related to these funds. As a different source of capital have distinct and a different cost, one has to ascertain a method to calculate the cost of capital. Steps in the overall cost of capital. Now this is very important, because you have already undergone the quiz today. You have seen how I have asked you to calculate various sources of or you can say various rates at which or you can say the methods I have told you to just calculate certain things, and you have done it in a very good manner. So in the same way, this cost of capital will also, we have to study this also. So first determine or calculate the various cost of different sources of fund, that is debt, equity, present. This is the first step we have already gone with. We are already aware that what is debt, what is equity, what is preference shares, and what are the cost of each particular item. And afterwards we have to assign the weight to each cost of the different sources, and the weight assigned to the each cost of capital is equal to the proportion of investment that the capital is divided, and it is divided by the total investment or the total capital of the firm. And then afterwards you have to add all the weighted components of the cost of capital and arrive at the firm's weighted average cost of capital, which is also KA, means the weighted average cost of capital. So KX is equal to after tax cost of X the method financing, WX is the weight of the specified method, that is multiplied by it, and then summation of everything. So WACC in other words is weighted average cost of capital, N is equal to 1 plus N, or you can say KX, or it is X is equal to 1 plus N, or KX into WX. WX and KX are nothing but the various sources of financing. Just don't go in this formula because we will be consuming. So let us now just do a practical question on it. Let us consider the following capital structure of a firm. There is equity capital, preference capital, retained earnings, and the debt is given. Now the proportion of each financing. Now 100, this total is 16 lakhs. Now this 16 lakhs, 21.9% is equity, 12.5% is preference share, retained earning is 43.7%, and 21.9% is the debt, which actually makes the 100% of the financing. So the entire capital structure of a company is given over here. In the same way, if I will provide you the balance sheet of any of the companies, you can easily make out that what are the proportions of each type of financing or the each type of source of financing they have used in order to do it. The firm computed, now the firm has computed the after tax cost of the different components and the sources of financing, which are given as follows. Now source, this equity capital is there. So this is weights are given and cost of capital is also given, right? So this is nothing but you can say this actually it is a screenshot taken over here. So it is 43.7. The thing in red is 43.7 over here in the preference capital. So each capital is associated with 16%, 15%, 12%, and 10% are the cost of it. Weights are given, cost is given, nothing. What? How will you assign the weight? There are 3 steps of weighting system that can be adapted, determining the weight of the cost. How it is, how you can do it? That weights are nothing but it is based. It can be based either on the book value of the different source used by the firm, or it can be according to the current market value. So there are things how can you do this. Now first is on the basis of book value, second is on the basis of market value, and third is weights based upon the proportion of the financing of the different source of finance used by the firm as compared to his total capital. In this question we have taken this third approach. Otherwise the book value and current market value approach can be taken. It will be given in the question what approach is to be taken, and accordingly you have to calculate the weight, and then afterwards you have to multiply it and you will get the weighted average cost of capital. That is the end of the topic of the cost of capital. Now we will just look at the illustration and we'll try to understand how to calculate weighted average cost of capital. It is very easy. Come on page number 332, illustration number 10.6. Here we will be able to see how we will be able to calculate the WACC based on book value and WACC on the basis of the market value. Now I am again sharing with you the scanned copy which Purva has given us. Okay, now this is page number 332. I am coming on page number 332. Now here entire theory portion of this is given. You can just go through this by your own. And here it is. So we are on illustration number or example number 10.6. So example number 10.6 comprise of the equity share capital. The amount is given 20 lakhs. It is divided into 2 lakh shares of rupees 10 each. Preference share capital is given as 50,000 share of rupees 10 each, 5 lakhs, and then retained earnings is given at rupees 10 lakhs. 7.5% debentures are also there. Okay, and 1,000 each debentures is there, and there are 1,500 debentures. You can say there is a 1,500 debenture of rupees 1,000, so 15,000 is there. Now specific cost of capital associated with each of these sources is given over here. That equity share capital is the cost of equity share capital is 11%, cost of preference is 8%, retained earnings is again 11%, which is equal to equity, and debenture is 4.5%. Presently the debentures are being traded at 94%. Preference shares are trading at par and equity shares are 30. So this is the market price is also given to you. Now you have to calculate weighted average cost of capital on the basis of book weights. So book weights, if you see, the book value is 5 lakh, 20, 10 and 15, which is already given in your question, which comes to 50 lakhs. And if you calculate it from this point of view, the proportion, or you can say the percentage, it is 0.1, 0.4, 0.3 and 0.2 and 0.3. So it's coming to be 1. So what you have to do, and again, the cost of capital associated with each of the source. 0.08 means 8%, 0.11 means 11%, 0.11 11%, and 0.45 is 4.5%. Now what you have to do is you just have to multiply the cost with the weight. Nothing more you have to do. So 0.80 multiplied by 0.1, 0.4 multiplied by 0.110, 0.2 multiplied by 0.110, 0.3 multiplied by 0.045, and this will be the weighted average cost of capital. And then when you will add it, it will give you 0.875. It means 8.75 is the weighted average cost of capital on the basis of book value. Now you can take it on the basis of market value also. So market value for each security, it is given that how much it is traded in the market. So preference shares are traded at par. So 5 lakhs ka 5 lakhs, and then equity share which is of rupees 10, which is traded at rupees 13 in the market. So it will now be multiplied by rupees 13, and the book value accordingly accordingly will change in the market value. If you see, this is now coming to be 17,33,333. You have multiplied it by the market value. Retained earnings will also get adjusted accordingly, and 0.75 debentures will also get adjusted because it is now trading, because it was 15 lakhs previously. Now it is trading at 14.10 lakhs. And accordingly, now on the basis of this new values, the market value of the total investment is 45.10 lakhs. You can say 45 lakhs 10,000, and now weights will also change, and the cost of capital is already given to you. So multiply the new weights with new cost of capital, you will get the weighted cost of capital, and the total you will get, and you will get the weighted average cost of capital as 8.63, as we have got over here as 8.75. So if we see the market value of cost of capital is less than that of the book value. Why? Because we have got an appreciation in our equity, and there is a reduction in the debt because the market price of the debt is floating at 94%, 94 rupees. Okay, so this is about your 10.86 question. So here certain notes are given, you can go through this. There is again one more terminology which is called weighted marginal cost of capital. Weighted marginal cost of capital is nothing but if you are going to go for financing now, there will be change in the price of each type of financing you are going to get from the market. So whenever you are proceeding further with new equity shares, there will be additionally, there will be extra cost. So what will be the margin, or you can say additional cost for every unit of financing which you will be getting is nothing but the marginal cost of capital. So you can go through this marginal cost of capital by yourself also. Okay, and now further you can just do the question. Now there are certain adjustment of flotation cost is also given on page number 336. Now there are small adjustments which are given, which you can even study yourself. Okay, so this was mostly about your cost of capital. Now graded illustrations have come, so please note down the illustrations which you have to do. So illustration number 10.1, 10.2, 10.3 you can go for. You can go for 10.4 now. 10.5 also you can do. Ten 10.6. 10.7 you have to calculate weighted average cost. 10.9. 10.10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 also is a good question. CAPM model is applied in 10.21, 10.23 also, where is a certain twist is given this question. So what I will be requiring from you is you just need to do any 15 question of your choice. from the graded illustration, except this do it from up to 10.27. 28 is weighted marginal, so weighted marginal is not that much important. So you must know that how this weighted average cost of capital is calculated, because this is equally important for us to just understand this. Why? Because this is the rate which is actually you can say the rate which is used by our capital budgeting decision. You must know that. So this is your cost of capital is also over, and we are over with our 2 hours class today. One, it is the recording is now proceeding further. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and this recording will also be available to you if you want to go to EduNext platform. There itself you can take the recording from, and the recording is available in the streaming section of this particular software, which is MS Meets 2. So if you have any question, you can ask before I leave. Anyone, any question if you want to ask? Yes, Priyam, anything?
No,
No, sir.
Okay. Lakshya,
no, sir, nothing. Thank you.
fine. Lakshya, I think you are not doing questions these days. I have not received any call from you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Laksh?
Yes, sir, not much.
No, you have to do. If you will not do, who will do? Okay, fine. So I'm signing off, guys. So see you in the next class, and be prepared for the next quiz also. Let me tell you one more thing. I have prepared one comprehensive quiz of 30 marks, which is very, very, very important. Now you have studied this 10 marks quiz. You have gone through this 10 marks quiz also, 20 marks quiz also you have done. That 30 marks quiz will be more comprehensive and more elaborative. So if you will do that quiz, I think it will be easier for you to grasp a chapter also, and there will be good outcomes of that quiz too. So you tell me when you want to do that quiz. Maybe tomorrow?
No, sir, day after tomorrow we have another subject quiz. So,
Sorry,
please give us some.
speak
The
loudly.
day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow we have another subject quiz.
So no problem, tomorrow you can have, because you have already prepared for it.
Yes, give
So
us some
don't
time.
worry, it is just an extension of what we have done the 2 quizzes now. You can say it will be addition of both. It will be half an hour quiz or maybe 45-minute quiz. I will give you 40. It is a comprehensive exam, you can say, or you will be able to understand the pattern how the exams will be going on. So it will be beneficial for all of you to just attempt that quiz which I have prepared. 30 marks quizzes there online and all that it will happen. Fine, so let us decide it on the WhatsApp group itself that how we will be going to.
Sir, tomorrow Sunday, sir. At least
Okay.
एक दिन rest.
So I am signing off. I am stopping the recording. Or speak loudly. And say something.
सर कल तो संडे है सर.
अरे संडे मंडे सब बराबर है भाई अभी इन दिनों में. संडे का क्या क्या होता है इसको? तुमको कि रामायण और महाभारत थोड़ी देखना है क्या? ओके.
यस सर.
हाँ, तो बी प्रिपेयर्ड. अभी इतनी मेहनत मैं कर रहा हूँ तो आप लोगों को भी थोड़ा एफर्ट तो करना चाहिए ना.
कैपिटल बजटिंग का ही है क्या सर पूरा?
हाँ, कैपिटल बजटिंग का ही आपने ऑलरेडी चलेगा ना.
कौन कौन से